Hands-On is sponsored in part by Elmer's Products, Inc., manufacturers of a variety of adhesives, arts and crafts, and office products for use at home, school, or business for over 60 years. www.elmers.com. Stadler Incorporated, inspiring creativity for more than 150 years. Available wherever fine art and craft supplies are sold. www.stadler.us.
This season of Hands-On is all about living things. Learn about the animals and plants that share our environment through great projects. We've divided them into the same classifications used by scientists. First, we divide the animal kingdom by whether or not they have a backbone. Then we look at other characteristics like what they eat, where they live, and their body temperature. The groups will study are amphibians, birds, fish, mammals, and reptiles. For invertebrates, we'll divide them into insects, arachnids, and crustaceans and mollusks. For plants, we'll talk about the way we see and use plants in everyday life. Every project has 5 steps and 5 main ingredients. Plus, you'll want to keep basic supplies like scissors, markers, toothpicks, and rulers on hand. Remember, be creative, and let's learn about living things. Our first category of living things is animals with a backbone or vertebrates. This is the one thing they have in common, and their other characteristics can be very different. We start out with birds. These are warm-blooded animals. No matter what the temperature outside, their body temperature stays the same, and they have feathers to help keep them warm. They vary in size from the tiny hummingbird to a huge ostrich. Birds have 2 legs and 2 wings. They also have a beak and no teeth. Birds are hatched from eggs. Many birds can fly, but not all flying animals are birds, and there are even some birds that can't fly. Our first project is a colorful paper toucan mask. Next up is a beautiful watercolor bird mobile, featuring commonly seen birds. Last up, create a clay bird's nest filled with different types of eggs. So let's fly up to our first project.
Our first project is a toucan mask. And if you do a little bit of research, you'll see just how much fun you can have with this project, because there are around 40 different species of toucans, and each one has different coloring and different markings. So you can match your papers to the bird that you choose to do and have some really individual masks. The product that we're going to use for our project, we need 3D paints, blue, black, and yellow cardstock. You'll also need some ribbon. And then the basic supplies that we're going to use today are tacky glue, glue stick, a hole punch, a pencil and a yellow pencil, and a pair of scissors. So let's go ahead and get started. The first step is to go online to our website and download the patterns for your mask. We've marked each of the pieces on the patterns with the color that you need to cut it out of. The first thing that I'm going to do is cut out my black pieces. So I have the mask piece, a detail for the beak, and then this little piece is also for the beak. I'm going to take my yellow pencil and I'm going to trace all the way around the mask. And you can see that with the yellow pencil, you can see really clearly on the black where you're going to cut. So be pretty careful as you trace and try to keep close to the edge so that you get a nicely shaped mask. And around the eyes, this side. And then for where the hole punches are, I'm just going to go ahead and mark a little X. And that way I'll know that I center my hole punch on those spots. So there's our mask. Oh, and I missed the top of the eye, so I'm just going to go back and outline that spot. Perfect. And then this is the detail for the beak. I'm going to move it up here so I don't waste any paper. And the last piece. Now on this piece, you can see that there are also some dotted lines, and those dotted lines represent a spot that you have to make a fold on. And to make my fold a little bit easier, I'm going to finish drawing along here first, and then I'm going to take my pencil which is just a little sharper than my yellow pencil, and I'm going to draw on top of my dotted lines. And that's going to put kind of a little indent on my cardstock so that I know where to fold. And it'll make the fold a little bit easier too. There we go. So the next step is to cut everything out. I'm going to start by trimming around the mask, just to separate it from the other pieces. And then I'm going to cut inside of these circles. The best way to do this is to poke in really carefully with your scissors, and then to go to the bottom with the scissors. I'm going to trim a little line straight out to the edge, and there we go. Now I can cut it easily. Another tip that I like to share is that when I'm cutting, I try to turn the piece that I'm cutting instead of turning my scissors. And that gives you a more exact cut and a little bit more control when you're cutting things like a circle. There we go. So of course I would finish cutting out the entire piece of this mask and all my other pieces. There we go. And if your edges aren't perfectly straight, that's okay too, because we're going to put some glitter paint around them, and that's going to hide any little tiny bits that aren't perfectly straight. So that's my mask. Of course, I cut out the other circle for the eye and the details for the beak. And then I would go ahead and I would trace my blue piece onto the blue cardstock and cut that out. And you can use the same technique inside of the circle. And then we're going to cut out the yellow pieces. And then this piece, instead of drawing it on, I went ahead and I printed it directly onto my cardstock from my printer. And that makes it just a little bit easier so I don't have as much to trace. Again, I can take my pencil now and trace over top of each of these lines that has the dots. And when I fold this up, I'll fold this side to the inside so you can't see it, and it will make folding along these dots a little bit easier. There we go. So I'm just going to set this aside, and let's go look at all the pieces that I've cut out. So this is our black mask piece, and I've turned it upside down so that I don't see any of the yellow, and I'm going to use my glue stick to glue the details on. So first the eye pieces. You want to make sure that it's coated nicely around, especially around the edges, so that it adheres nice and flat. Push that into place. And then the blue rings. And again, this is where you can have a lot of fun because the different toucans look so different and beautiful. There's all kinds of reds and blues and greens on them. See, if a whole bunch of people made masks, they could all be different. Here's our other yellow piece. And I'm just going to try it on and make sure I have it not upside down. That looks like it's going to work. So we'll add the glue stick. There we go. And the other ring. And then if I flip this back over, I'll be able to see where I marked my yellow X's. Oh, actually my X's aren't on this one. So I'm going to go back to my pattern. I'm going to put it back in place. Mark my X's so I know where to punch. And then use the punch. So I'm going to open this up. And I can line up the X with the dot of the punch and punch right through all of the layers. Okay, so we can set this aside, and the next step is the beak. So for the beak, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to make my creases first. Just use your fingers and fold along all the dotted lines. And if you've drawn over them with the pencil, that's going to help them fold nice and exactly. And then these little tabs are going to help you have some dimension to your beak. So we're going to have to fold all of those guys up. There we go. Now I'm going to flatten it out, and I'm going to glue the pieces onto the beak, just like I did on the mask. So use your glue stick, add the details. These are kind of like nostrils almost on the beak near the front. Glue all of that in place. And the next step is to go ahead and paint your beak. And this is where I use the glitter paints. So I use some yellow along the edges, and I outlined each of the edges So I'm going to just go all the way around the beak and detail it. You can use some red, a little bit of detail down here, and when you're all finished, you glue it all together. So each of these tabs gets a little dab of glue, and for this we're going to use the tacky glue. And I haven't let this dry, but you'll want to make sure that you give yours a good hour or so to dry thoroughly so that you don't get it all over you. So a little tab of glue now goes along each of these tabs, and then we fold everything together. So bend this piece down again. And you can see that everything fits really nicely. Just fold it with your fingers, tuck the tabs in as needed. There we go. And I'm spreading out that paint that I put on because I didn't allow it to dry all the way. There we go. So you're going to fold all those tabs in and now set this piece aside to dry as well. And when you're all done, you'll have the dimensional beak like this. We have to add a little bit more glue. And again, I'm going to use the tacky glue on this piece because it's a little bit heavier paper. And the dimension, we want to make sure we have a really strong adhere. And I'm going to just flatten this out on the counter, place my mask on top of it. I'm holding it in place with my fingers and give it a couple of minutes to dry. And then once it's dry, we can go ahead and let go and use the same 3D paints to add detail and a little bit of decoration around each of the eyes. The final step will be to add ribbon onto your mask. And all you do to do this is tie a little knot in one end and then thread the ribbon through the hole from the back. And now this piece of ribbon I can cut in half. There we go. And that's how you finish off your toucan mask.
Take a look at this beautiful watercolor bird mobile. I bet these are some of the same birds that you see right around your house. Here's what you'll need. We started out with watercolor pencils. We have cardstock. I'm using just a manila folder. We have a branch of a tree, some silk leaves, 2 boxes of the same height, and this can be any scrap boxes, and then our basics. We're using a low-tack masking tape. We have a thick tacky glue, some heavy thread, a pencil, a paintbrush, and our scissors. So let's get started. The first thing is that you need to do your patterns, and all the patterns are available on the website, and we've chosen some of the more common birds like cardinals and finches and blue jays. Each of the patterns you're going to have the body and 2 wing pieces for each, and all of them are here. So the first thing you want to do is cut those out. And I've cut them out of my white paper, and I'm going to trace them onto my cardstock. Now you could use cardstock, or as I said, I used a manila folder. So let's grab our pencil, and we'll lay our bird shape down and trace around, which I've done already, and then we'll cut that out. Nice tip for when you're cutting is to move your paper rather than your scissors, and you'll get a nice smooth cut. So you'd continue and do one for each bird and a pair of wings for each bird that you want to make. So let's set that aside because I really want to get started coloring. Now this is my bird shape, and I'm going to start with the cardinal, and cardinals are red. So the first thing I'm going to do is choose my brushes. And instead of a brush, I'm using a pencil. And these are shaped in a triangular shape, so it makes it easy to hold. And you have a lot of control using a pencil rather than using like a watercolor, a pad and brush. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to start by coloring in different areas. So I'm going to start with the red at the top. Now you don't have to worry about your lines because those are, when you add water, they're going to all smooth out. So I'm going to start at the top here, and I'm going to bring this in front here so you can see one that I've already got painted. And I'm going to create this section that runs around the crest. Now an important thing would be is to look up online or in a book and see the colors. We also will have patterns on the website that show the exact colors on each one of these birds. Now the other thing I'm going to do is let's take a little bit of the gold color and create his beak. The fun thing about using pencils is that you can layer color on top of color. So I've just added this gold, and I'm going to add a little bit of orange and add a little shading into that. So that's his beak section. Let me take my black And again, I'm adding this section in here. You see how nice and smooth these go on? And they look just like pencils. Now let's build the red. And I'm just using a back and forth motion, and I'm going to get rid of all those pencil lines. So now if you carried this across, we'd carry it across the entire bird. You can see he's got a darker red along the stomach. You might add some pink shades or other colors. And because it has such a sharp point, it makes it really easy to fill in these nice small areas. Now the next step is I'm going to take my paintbrush, and of course we'd color this all in. And by taking my brush and wetting it, and I find it's much easier to add my colors first and then blend. Look how intense those colors get. And you can see I have it right on a paper towel so I can take off any excess color. But look how beautifully they blend. And we color in that, of course, the whole picture in before we add the water. Now if you see on this one right here, I'm going to go back and add a little bit of the water. Let me see so you can see that. And that'll blend in and all of the brush strokes disappear and you get that beautiful effect. Now once you've done one side of the bird, you turn him over and paint the other side of the bird in the exact same way. Now I've got some completed here, and this time I've taken the blue jay. And you can see on the blue jay here his one side and then the other side. And I've also colored the two wing parts. Now I'm going to take a little snip here. This is where my wings are going to go in. And then I've cut a length of thread. It's about 36 inches long. And I'm just folding it in half. I'm going to hold it, and about 5 inches up, I'm going to put a knot in it. Then I'm going to take these two ends, make sure they're nice and even to each other. The next step is to add our glue. Now on our pattern, there was a section marked just where you add the glue, which is going to go right here. And I'm using a nice thick glue. Then I'm going to take either end and lay that in the glue, one on either side, and then lay my other piece of wing down on top of it. Now when this dries, you can trim these two edges off. Then we're going to fold that in half. And then that would slot right into the bird. And if you can see on this one, maybe you can see it a little bit easier. The two pieces are here, the thread is through it, and that's what's holding it, and that's going to hang over the branch. Now we want to get our branch ready. So I'm going to take our branch here and our leaves, and we'll just add some glue in the corners, on the edge. You can always add more as you go along. And then I'm going to take my finished birds, which are still on the folded thread, and just loop them over the branch. And then I'll even them out and space them the way that I'd like, and then tie them and knot them. An easy way to space those along the branch is to take those boxes that we used in the beginning and put one at either end of the branch and just lay that on top. Now if we go to the finished one, you can see that I've hung the birds at all different heights, and that way you can see the detail on each one of the birds. And that's our watercolor mobile.
Our next project is a clay nest and eggs, and you can see it right over here, and it's beside a real nest. Our nest is slightly smaller, but nests do actually come in that size, although a nest that size would probably have slightly smaller eggs than what we've done. But we wanted to do them a little bit bigger so that they were a little bit easier to work with. The materials that we're going to need are our modeling tools, modeling clay, and I've got a paper tube that we can use to punch our size. So we're going to go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to do is the nest. So we're going to start and make sure that we have a work surface that is clean, and it's good to cover it in wax paper so that you don't leave any mess behind when you're all done. Next thing we're going to do is take some clay. I've just taken a little bit of a chunk off of here, and we have to condition the clay. And all conditioning is warming up the clay in your hands so that it's really soft and really easy to work with. So you can see I've actually started conditioning this already, and so it's very soft and easy to work with. So once I've conditioned my little piece of brown clay, I'm going to flatten it out. And you can use your fingers to flatten it like I am, or you can use a little rolling pin. You can use just about anything for a rolling pin too. So I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to take my paper tube and I'm just going to indent it into my clay and then break away the outer edges of it. And this is the base for my nest. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but that gives you a good idea of what size you need. So once you've got that little circle, push it down into the palm of your hands and make it into a little cup. So I'm going to set it down. You can see how now that I've pressed it, the edges are raised just that little bit. Okay, the next step is I'm going to take that leftover clay from where I punched. I'm going to roll it back into a little ball, warm it up again. And once it's in a ball, we're going to roll it into a long sausage. Just make sure it's going to roll for us. There we go. So to make these, oops, it's breaking. That's because I didn't condition it quite enough. So let's just warm it up a little bit more. There we go, that should be better. And you can see by putting even pressure on the clay, it just starts rolling for you. And you can use as many fingers as you feel comfortable with. And we just want it to be not too thin because it'll break easily, and not too thick. So maybe 1/8 of an inch would be the perfect size. And once we've rolled it out, we can use one of our modeling tools, and we just cut this into little sticks. And the sticks don't have to be the exact same size, and you can do them a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, and start layering them around the nest. And we can crisscross them back and forth and kind of weave them together just like a bird would. There we go. And a few of these should go on the inside as well, because if a bird was making it, the whole entire nest would be covered and made out of these little twigs. There we go. I'll just keep doing a few more. You can see that it builds up pretty quickly, and as you go, just make sure that that little lip stays raised and you're tucking the twigs so that they stick just under the very edge of it. The other thing that you can do is use your fingernail or the modeling tool and put some little kind of twig design in the bottom of your nest. So you'll keep layering this all around, and eventually you're going to end up with a nest that looks like this. The last thing you have to do to finish the nest is to tuck leaves into it. And again, just use your modeling tool and tuck them right into place. We're going to set that aside, and it's ready to bake. When you're ready to bake your clay, you're going to follow the directions that come in the package. And you also want to bake it on either a tile or a piece of glass or a piece of tin foil. Now we've done 3 eggs. The first egg is very easy. You just roll out your little sausages of clay and you blend them together until you get a marbled effect out of it. Again, this clay has already been conditioned. You can see I'm just going to twist it together like a candy cane, and the more that you blend this, the more of a marble effect you're going to get. I'm going to roll it into a ball and then flatten out one end. Oh, we'll just do a little bit more there. And that's our marbled egg, so that one's all ready to be baked. And then a polka dot egg is very similar. We're going to start with a solid color. And that's going to be our egg base. And then we're going to take a skinny sausage of clay, and we're going to cut little dots out of it like this. We're going to press the dots, and then you just place the dots onto your egg and then roll it slightly again, and that's going to blend the dots into the egg and give you a nice smooth surface. So you cover your entire egg with dots, and then that one would be all ready to bake. And the last one is our marbled egg. So again, I've made an egg, and what a marbled egg, or I'm sorry, the cane egg has a fun little flower design that's pressed all over top of it. And the cane is very easy to make. You take several different colors of sausages, and they can be different widths and shapes, and you layer all of them together. So I'm going to go white, blue, and I would stack these all the way around the blue core. So again, a white and a blue. And once that blue core is completely surrounded, it gets wrapped up inside kind of a little blanket. So I can set this aside, and I'm going to roll it up. You can see my clay is a little bit big, so I can trim away the excess. There we go. You can see that that just comes right around the whole little bundle that I made. Roll it to hide the seam, and then when you're finished, it's going to look something like this. Okay, and when we're ready, we just go ahead and take a tool. We cut the slices, and they get placed on the egg, just like the polka dots. And again, we can roll it, and your egg will be ready to bake after you've covered the entire thing. Then you can put your eggs in your nest, and you're all done.
Thank you for watching and learning about our feathered friends. On our next show, we take to the water for a study of amphibians. Hope to see you then on Hands On.
Projects from today's show plus other ideas are available on the web at craftsforkids.com. This is show 1201. Hands On is sponsored in part by Elmer's Products, Inc., manufacturers of a variety of adhesives, arts and crafts, and office products for use at home, school, or business for over 60 years. www.elmers.com. Stadler Incorporated, inspiring creativity for more than 150 years. Available wherever fine art and craft supplies are sold. www.stadler.us.
Hi, I'm Kathy Stahl, host of Hands On Crafts for Kids. I hope you'll join us each week as we show you craft basics and great projects, each with 5 steps and 5 main ingredients. We have a lot of crafting fun in store for you. And remember what we all say at Hands On Crafts for Kids. There's no right or wrong way, only your way. Be creative, have fun. We hope you'll join us for Hands On Crafts for Kids. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my! Hi, I'm Kathy Stahl, host of Hands On Crafts for Kids. Our newest series is all about living things. We'll be crafting projects about mammals, amphibians, reptiles, insects, and more. All the projects have 5 steps and 5 main ingredients. Join us for Hands On Crafts for Kids and be creative and have fun.